Hey everybody, it's Kim Sminky here with Lolly Doodle Studios with another sweet little watercolor painting tutorial. We are going to paint this adorable, sweet, soft bunny tonight. So I hope you'll join me. Now, before I get started, I do just want to let you know that a downloadable printable tracer is available in my store so that you can start to paint along with me immediately. So the information for that is below in the description box. If you would like to take it a step further and paint with the exact same paints that I am using this evening, I have that as well. So I do sell the paint kits. So what you would get with a kit would be your piece of watercolor paper. We are using Arches watercolor paper. So that's the good stuff. And this is just a way for you to try the same exact colors that I'm using. So you would get in your kit a piece of Arches watercolor paper. You would get your bunny tracer, and you would also get a dot card of samples. And believe me, it may not look like a lot of paint, but there is enough paint on these dot cards to paint this project plus so many more. So if you would like to paint along and try to use some of the more high-end paint, this would be a great way to get you started without breaking the bank. And as I said, you get all of this. You get the paint, you get the tracer, and you get a taste of Arches watercolor paper, which is the good stuff. So enough of that. We'll move on. We'll try to make this quick and fun because watercolor should be both. So you can see here, I took my tracer, I used a piece of carbon paper, just a small piece of carbon paper, and I put it on my paper and lightly traced my bunny shape in. For me, I'm going to keep the background nice and soft, but you could, get real detailed with that as well if you chose to do so. So we are going to paint this bunny here that I've done. Very soft, sweet little bunny. My paper here is a little bit smaller than this piece, but that fits my needs. If you do want to purchase the kit, you will get an 8x10 piece of Arches watercolor paper for yourself so that you can paint along. Now, you will also get a dot card, which has the paints on there. I do have some of my paints already set up here in my palette, so I'm just going to first give them a quick spritz of water to activate them. If you would like more information on how to use these dot cards, I also have a link to another video for that below in the description box. So you feel free to go check that out at your convenience. So I will be using a size 4 and a size 1 watercolor brush. These are brushes from Princeton. These are the Princeton Select, and they will work just fine. So we're going to work from the bunny, and we're going to work our way out. So I'm going to move this off to the side just for a minute. And I do have my water set up here. I have a fresh water and a dirty water so that when I'm switching back and forth, I can always dip into the fresh water to get nice, clear, fresh water. So to get started on the bunny, we'll start with the ear and work our way over. My brush is just loaded with water, and I am just going to come in here and just put a light wash of just clear water right on this one ear here. So I'm just spreading that water just on the one ear. And then we'll move on to the next. So you can always like sort of move your paper there. You can see that little shimmer. The water is there. The ear is nice and coated. And I have my paints set up and ready to go here. So I'll just get a little bit more paint on my brush. And the way I did this bunny, I used a little bit of indigo blue. Believe it or not, we used some indigo and a little bit of gray. So I'm going to just mix the two of those together. But I'm going to make sure. Now remember, when we use watercolor, we're working from our lightest to our darkest color. But we already have the ear is nice and wet. Excuse me. I'm just going to get my paper towel. I want to make sure that this water is not soaking on the brush because we are going to pick up water. So we're just going to pick up some of our blue that we've mixed with the gray. And I'm just going to come in around the edges here of the ear. And I'm just going to start tapping and just dragging my brush right along the outline of the bunny ear. And where that meets the water, you will see it just start to blend in across the paper. Okay, so I'm just going to keep my darkest spots right around the outer edge of the bunny's ear. If it get a little crazy, see where that got in there a little bit, and I don't really want that much in the inner ear, we can just clean our brush, tap it off on a paper towel, and we can just come right in, and it will lift some of that color right back up and off. Tap it. As long as it's still wet, you can pull some of that color back up and off of the bunny. So we're going to let that ear dry before we move on to this one. All right, so you can see it got a little bit darker on this bunny than this one, but that's okay. Not every piece is going to turn out exactly the same. So now I'm going to come up over the bunny's head, and I'm just going to do that same thing. I'm just going to spread my water around the top of the bunny's head, right down there to the tip of the nose. I'm going to not go into the circle of the eye with that paper nice and wet there. I can then come back over here into my blue, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to tap and run my brush right along the edge of the bunny's head. And I am just going to let that do what it does. Now, if you do want to coax it a little bit, just go ahead and rinse your brush. You don't want to put too much water on, but you can just come back over now with just a wet brush and pull some of that color up and off again. And then we're just going to let it do what it does. Okay, so we're just going to keep working in that same manner. If it looks a little too blue, just make sure you add a little bit of more of the gray in. I don't mind that it has that hint of blue. I actually kind of like it. And as it's starting to dry, you can always just come in and tap in just a little bit more color. Like this ear is already drying, so I'm not going to do that one just yet. I'm going to tap in a little bit of that darker color right above the nose, and I'm going to leave that alone. I want that to just go ahead, spread, and dry. I'm pulling some of the color up and off just to help it along a little bit. And as long as the color is wet and it's still nice and wet, you can kind of coax it a little bit with your brush. Okay, so then we're wet. The paper's wet to right about the eye here. I can come in under the eye. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to drop a little bit of water under the eye, come around, and I'm just going to pull it down a little bit. This is just plain old water. I mean, it may have the faintest hint of the blue on it, which is fine. But I'm just going to add a little bit of a shadow right here under the eye. And this is the brown, the burnt umber brown. We just want that very, very, very watered down. All right, and I'm just going to bring in, again, just the tiniest little drops of that brown around the eye. And we want to let it just blend out into that cheek that we just covered with water. It's just going to create the softest little highlight. You may not even be able to really see it until I lift it up to the camera. So with watercolor, and this bunny is working soft and building up. So we're going to come in here now to the cheeks, and we're going to repeat the same process. Just plain water. We're going to wet the inside of the cheek here, and just the outer part of that little cheek. And I'm going to grab some of that brown and just drop that color in right under there where the nose is, and right around the edge of this outer cheek. And you can see where you can just pull it right on around. Just add the littlest bits of paint at a time. We can always go back and darken it, but it's harder to get it light once you go dark with watercolor. So we're just going to pull that right underneath of the nose there. And we're going to let that now dry. All right, so we're going to come back over here. Now that this ear is wet, this part of the bunny's head is wet, we're going to work on this big, big ear here. And you can see this ear, I have some of the darker color around the bottom and up underneath. I have some of the brown throughout the middle, and right at the edge of that top of the ear, we've left that very, very, very light. So I'm just going to grab my fresh water, and we're going to fill the bunny ear in, except for a very small bit where the two ears touch. We are going to leave that dry. So only bring your water up as far, leave a good little 1/4 of an inch between this ear and that ear. All right, and as we can see, let me move this one up just a little bit so we can see that bunny and the paint palette at the same time. So I've got my indigo and my gray mixed together here. And I'm going to come in now. I want to get this bottom part of the ear, and I'm going to just drop in that color. And I'm just tapping right along the outer edge of the ear. I'm doing a good bit up into the ear because I want that color to really fill up most of this bottom part of his ear. You can bring it in. Just go lightly. Don't like scrub hard on your paper. Up here, I want it to be a little bit thinner. And we can get this little bump under the ear with that darker color as well. That indigo mixed with the gray. Okay, so we're seeing that. Now I'm going to rinse my brush, clear water, and I'm going to pick up just that hint of brown that I mixed up over here. Very thin, very watery. And I'm just going to very lightly drop a little bit of that brown in the inner part of this ear. I can work that down, let it meet up with the blue, and just let the two colors blend and do what watercolor does. But as you can see, I'm leaving that white highlight there for the bunny's ear. I want to create a nice little bit of contrast there between the two ears so that they don't just sort of melt together. You can kind of work these two colors together a little bit, give them a little bit of help mixing together. All right, so now I'm going to clean my brush again, fresh water, and I'm going to wet this top ear now, the inner, kind of like the inside. I'm going to leave the very edges just with the blue mixed with the gray. And I am just going to come and grab a little bit of my brown again. And I'm just going to tap some of that color in the center of that ear. I can darken by just tapping a little bit of that color around on the ear. It's still wet, so I can tap that in just a bit. Watch it. If you don't like the way that it's spreading, just come in with your brush very lightly and just help it blend in a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to darken this part of the ear. Right here, we can see that it's darker. We're just going to do the same. I'm just going to grab a little bit of fresh water, and I'm just going to go right along the edge of that bunny's ear right there. And I'm going to drop in some of that indigo blue mixed with my gray right along the line there. And it creates that little bit of a shadow of a dip there. You can come in and right at the tip of this ear, you can add just a tiny bit of that to darken the shadow on the ear behind it. So I'm just tapping that lightly. That top ear is wet. Now we have that white piece between the two ears. That's going to keep that color from just becoming one big blob of a mess. So where that white is, the paper's dry. And I'm just dabbing some of the darker color. It's the same blue, but with a little more pigment. So I'm just creating a little bit of a darker shadow there between the two ears. And I'm going to leave it be. I can take some fresh water along the bottom of the ear here a little bit. I don't like where I have that almost like a straight line. So I'm just going to wet the bottom part of the ear a little bit there. And we're going to glaze right over that with some of that darker color. And just let it do what it wants to do. It's going to blend up and into that brown a little bit. And watercolor is wonderful working wet on wet because it blends the colors almost magically for you. So I'm just taking some water. I'm just going to try to soften out the edge of that deep shadow just a bit. Okay, I can pull. Now I can come down around the back of the bunny's head. And I'm going to do the same thing. But I'm just going to use my brush to flick out a little bit where those hair strokes are. And then I'm just going to fill in a good bit of the bunny head. I can come in and grab some of that blue and brown mixture. That looks a little scary. If that happens to you, that looks a little bit scary, I know. But all you have to do is tap your brush, come in, lay the brush down, and lift some of that color up, coax it to go where you want it to go. And you'll see it's starting to lighten up and blend up into the bunny's face. That's the amazing thing about watercolor. And it's just gorgeous. I'm going to see if we can get in here a little bit closer for you. So now that around the eye is almost dry. Let's see. Around the eye is dry. So we're going to work in on the eye. Now, the one thing that's important to remember is that with watercolor on its own, you have to leave the paper white where you want a white highlight. You can come back later with a little marker, some gouache, or even acrylic and add a white highlight. But I am going to try to wet the inside of the eye and leave some little white spots open for highlights of the eye. And then I'm going to fill the rest of the eye around just with plain old water. Now, I don't know if you can see that or not. I'll lift the paper. You can see the wet, that shine where the water is. Now, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go into my burnt umber. I just wiggled right across that little bit of paint. And if you were using paint dots, you would do the same thing. I'm going to come around the outer part of the eye, following that outline. And I'm just going to drop that brown around the circle. Sorry about that. Around the circle of the eye. And you can tap a little bit in the inside. And you'll see what is going to happen is where I did not put water is going to leave some white spots. And that looks a little weird right now, but we can always fill that in. But you can see the white spots from where I did not put water down there. Okay, so if we look at this one really close, my eye highlights are just a lot smaller. So we can go in with the brush and make the whites of the eyes a little bit smaller. But for now at this stage, I would say just leave it be the way it is, because we're going to come back in and we're going to keep darkening that brown of the eye. Right now, we're going to leave that part alone. Okay, so now I want to come in with a little bit of my fresh water. Same thing. We're just going to fill in where that little lip of the bunny is with fresh water. We're going to come down his neck here and underneath the little cheek. And we're just going to fill that in with some fresh water. We can do some flicks with our brush to create some hair coming out. I hope you can see that. The lighting. All right, let's see if we can make that just a little bit better. But yeah, we're just putting water on the paper. You can bring it in. You can just kind of swish it around. Okay. And I'm going to just dip in now to my indigo and gray mixture that we've been using for the other parts of the bunny. And see, I'm just going to tap that just a little bit down the edges of the bunny. Okay. And if that's a little bit too dark, you can bring it in and wiggle it just a bit. If it's too dark, just go ahead like I'm going to do now. I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to pick up just some fresh water, and I'm going to come in from the center of the bunny. And I'm just going to pull some of that blue through, and you'll see how it's already sort of lightening up as I pull it down. Okay, we're just going to have the bunny softly blending out into nothing there. And we're going to just come over here and do the same thing with the back. So let's go ahead with our brush. Just going to tap that blue in there. And you can just be patient for a few minutes and watch the color do what it does. But again, if your color is too dark, you don't feel that it's blending as much into a soft wash as you want, come in with the clean brush. It's wet, but it's not sopping. It's been tapped on the paper towel. Come in from the center of the bunny and just kind of wiggle your brush. You can lift up the color if it's too dark, but I'm just going to wiggle some of that blue into the center of the bunny. A lot of this is still wet, so I'm going to go ahead back over here into my brown, into that brown mixture, and I'm going to tap just a little bit of the brown, a little bit, to mimic the hair strokes. I can come and just tap some of that brown because we're keeping it very soft. You can just mimic some of the hair strokes and just keep building with the color using fresh water, tapping around the edge with the brown. Keep it light and build up as you go. Now where the neck curves, I'm going to give that a few extra taps with my brown. I want a nice little shadow there. I'm going to come under his little cheek like we did here. I'm going to wet that, and I'm going to go with a little bit of a stronger brown around the edge of this muzzle here. So let me wet it. Not a lot. It's just a little bit of water on my brush. Okay. But I'm going to now just come in and run right across my brown. I want more pigment on the brush now. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to tap, softly tap. We're almost mimicking hair strokes right around the bottom of the muzzle. I'm going to do the same coming down. Okay. And I'm going to come down from under the nose with that brown and pull it down, that V of the mouth. See how it's just a bit darker there and stronger. We can always keep coming back to darken that up as much as we want or as little as we want. We can soften that some by pulling it out with the water in our brush. We can almost erase with a brush that's clean and just damp with water by pulling in and lifting some of that color up. So that's almost how we erase. It's not almost. That's how we erase with watercolor. I'm going to come in right there under the nose and strengthen that brown again. Right under the lip there. Look how cute he's looking already, guys. It's really turning out cute. So we're just going to come up here now and we're going to start darkening that eye. So I'm going to get some water on my brush and I'm going to wet this brown. I'm going to take just some fresh water again, and I want to make sure that the eye is still a little bit damp. So we're going to take that stronger color right around the edges. We're just going to tap that stronger brown right around the edges of the eye. I'm going to pull a lot of that strong brown down here into the corner of the eye. Let's see. I hope you can see that pretty well. But it still has the different shades of brown. So I'm going to just drop some more deep brown around the edges. And then I'm going to come up here around the highlights. I'm going to make them a little bit smaller just by tapping that deep, dark brown around them. Okay, and if it becomes all one color brown and you don't like it, again, how do we erase? We come in with a damp brush, not soaking, sopping, just damp, and we can lift and pull some of that brown back up. See how we pulled it up there? It's just a play. It's a dance. It's a dance with the watercolor. And you get each of these colors on the dot card for this project as well. You'll get enough paint to do this project and more, believe me, and more. Okay, so I want to deepen that eye just a little bit. So I'm going to come in either with my gray or I can use my indigo blue. I'm just going to pick up some of that indigo blue. It's kind of mixed with a little bit of the pink on there, but it's fine. And then I'm going to tap around the corner of the eye of the bunny, right on top of that brown. See how I'm staying right around the edge of the eye. And I'm darkening that up. Shape of the eye is a little bit different on this one, but it's still looking really, really cute. So I can pull and just tap a little bit on the inner part. I can come in with a damp brush and just move that. We can just keep moving that paint around until we're happy with it. I still love this eye, even though it's bigger than this one. You know, it just ends up so sweet. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to let that eyeball dry. And now we're going to come up here and just add in a few soft little leaves and flowers. So I'm going to come in with a bigger brush with just plain old fresh water. And I'm just going to wet this upper corner. I'm not going to touch the bunny, but I'm going to wet this upper corner of the paper just a good bit. Okay, we want to create those soft little flowers. So you get a dot of permanent rose in your kit. So what you'll do is you'll just take your permanent rose, and you also get a little paint well to lighten your colors in, or you could use a paper plate. But you just want to make that color nice and soft. And then all we're going to do over here is put the tip of the brush. This paper's nice and wet. It's got to be wet. You can see that shine. So we're just going to tap the brush. We're going to make 1, 2, 3, 4 little strokes, almost like a cross, meeting in the middle. 1, 2, grab some more color. 3, 4. You can do 4 or 5, and this is okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little petals. And we're going to leave that alone. Okay, we're going to leave that be. But you can fill up with as many as you want. You can make some big, some soft. Just tap some little dots of color there and just let it do. Let it blend. So that will blend out. You can come in with water. If it gets a little too crazy, come in with your big brush and pull some of that color up. It is fine. Now, we're going to let that dry just for a couple seconds. We're not going to dry it all the way because now we're going to dip into your green that you get on your dot card. And we're going to just mix up a really nice little shade of green. If it picks up some of the brown, that's fine as well. And we're just going to come in here now and tap the brush. And we're just going to create little lines that mimic leaves. And they're going to blend in with the pink. And that is perfectly fine. We can come all the way down with that green. We can just wet the paper. I've just got some dirty water, I should say, which has got some of the green on there. And I can just come in here and tap in some of my green and some of the brown. We're not really we want the flowers to just be very soft in the background. All right, and the bunny is just kind of melt off into the grass. We just want that hint of grass around the bunny. Okay, and it looks like it's starting to dry. It doesn't have to be dry all the way. So now I'm just going to come back in with my smaller brush, a 4 or a 6. Okay, this is still wet. I just stuck my finger in it. You can see that it's still wet. But I want a little bit more pigment now. I want a little bit more of my rose. So I'm darkening up that pigment. And I'm going to come in and do the same thing. I'm going to create 1, 2. You're going to start outwards, press the brush down, lift up, and join them in the middle. So you're just going to, and there's no perfection here. We are just creating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to create a couple little flowers like that. Let's do one more right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is a lot of water right there in that bit of the paper, but it's okay. It's just going to soften and blend. Now, why don't we come right in here and we'll do like a flower that's pointing down at the bunny. So we'll drop the brush, pull back, and lift at a point. 1, 2, 3. So it almost looks like the little flowers pointing down at the bunny. You can do as many flowers as you want. Let them soften up. You can do them. You want some really, really soft of just hints of flowers in the background. And you're just going to keep filling them in till you're happy with the amount. And I'm just kind of tapping my brush, creating little soft blobs of the flowers. We're almost done, guys. It's been a little over a half an hour. We are almost done with our sweet little bunny. I'm going to come over and take my big brush again. I'm just going to fill this outer edge here with fresh water and maybe down here a little bit. Okay, and you can use that blue that we used before, but with your dot card, you also get, where'd it go? You also get a little bit of the lighter blue. You can just tap onto that dot I'll show you. Just tap onto that dot, and you're going to come over here and drop that bright, beautiful blue color right here into the sky. And as long as your paper is wet, you'll see how that starts to just blend. You can come over and tap some of that over into the flowers as well. Wet your brush and help pull that around the page. So there's your sky and our bunny. Okay, the only difference is this bunny, we're going to go in and darken under his nose more. We can add some more brown in the body, but he's pretty much done. We can add a soft brown shadow around the eye. So we'll do that really quickly. And this is all the same technique that we have been doing. We do want to come in and do his little pink nose. So we're going to wet his nose with just some fresh water. We're going to tap into that rose that you've got, and we're just going to tap that into the nose, just softly, just nice and soft. Okay, now with some fresh water, I'm going to just do a nice little ring, almost like a ring of water around his eye. I'm not going to go all the way around, just softly around the top and around the bottom. Pull into some of my soft brown, and I'm just going to tap some of that brown into that water. Just let it soften and blend. You can tap a little bit of that brown into the muzzle. Tap some of the brown in. You can take your brush almost sideways and just flick downwards, almost like a dry brush, to create some textures of hair. If you don't like the dry brush look, soften it just gently with a little bit of fresh water, and that will help blend that out. And then we are going to darken. I'm going to grab some of that blue, our blue that we've been using. I'm just going to tap that into that little line under the nose. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm just going to pull that down in the V of the mouth. You can get a little bit right underneath of the side of the nose, just to create some depth, some shadow. And there is our soft, sweet little bunny, just by using different colors, adjusting the size of the eye. You can see where this one just looks so sweet and dainty, and this guy, he's sweet and dainty too, but he's a little goofy looking with his big eye. But it's good to just practice and see that not every piece turns out exactly the same. Now, I'm just going to come in here with my paper towel and blot some of this excess water up that's on the side, just to help that kind of soften and dry a little bit better. But I hope that you like that. Now, if you are interested in getting the downloadable template, there is a link below in the description box. There's a link also to grab the kit, which gives you the professional watercolor dot card so that you can use the same exact colors that I've used in this tonight. You also get the printed instruction printable book with that as well. and then you come back, watch the video, and paint along with me. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please like this video, subscribe for more acrylic and watercolor tutorials coming in the future. Thank you guys. Enjoy. Happy painting.